Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to the Home Slice. It's good to have you around. I don't know about you guys, but I am having so much fun with this mid-size EDC tournament. I know there's a lot of different definitions around, but in my mind, a mid-size EDC knife starts at maybe around 2.8 inch blade and goes up to about 3.3 inch. Anything over about 3.3 inch blade, I would consider full size, and anything smaller than 2.8, I would consider small. We have 2 more rounds left, and we've been sort of increasing little by little in edge length and blade size up to the sort of upper reaches of that. And I have a bit of a unique spin to throw on these last 2 episodes because I had an interesting question that I wanted to have answered. The interesting question I have is this. The whole world has gone sort of wild over CPM MagnaCut, and I think it's a wonderful steel. And in the next episode of this series, I'll be carrying it for the first time, and I'm very, very excited. But I can't help but notice that if you look in Dr. Laren Thomas, who is the developer of MagnaCut steel, in his article where he rates different knife steels, the edge retention rating is a 5 out of 10. And 5 out of 10 is quite good. There's a lot of really good things in that sort of category. But at the same time, there are other steels that are much less expensive, namely D2, which is also a 5 in the edge retention category. So I wanted to do a couple carries, and my question was this: how different is your experience in everyday carry for over a week of carry of steels like D2 tool steel in a really cheap package compared to something that's tougher? Now, in my mind, the benefit of something tougher is you can go thinner at the edge. I didn't want to take the other steels and take them to a super acute edge and test like a 13 degrees per side edge against D2 in a 17 degrees per side edge. I felt like that would be like sort of unfair, although it is a benefit of what you can do with really tough steel. But to try to make things a little bit more fair, what I did is I took the D2 and sharpened it at 17 degrees with the same dual grip protocol that I've used for everything else in these EDC series. And I took the other knives, which have tougher steels, and I took down the angle to like 13 or 14 degrees, and it just shaved off the shoulders of the edge with a 17 degree sort of micro bevel now. So I made the edge a little bit thinner with some more acute angle reliefs cut off of the shoulders of the edge. This first test, I am using the Charles Jones Bonepicker in CPM 3V. This is a gift from one of my viewers and a friend, Calvin. Calvin, thanks so much for this knife. It's so rad. It's made by a custom knife maker, Charles Jones. I believe he lives up in Washington State. It's got a real cool like patina finish on it. He's sort of drilled or milled these lines of texture into it and left this really coarse satin finish, and then patinaed it and then polished it so it took the tops off of everything. So you've got a bunch of kind of like almost a Damascus-y looking set of lines across the knife, which is really cool. As I said, I've taken the edge on this, and it's the same ultimate edge. It's 400 grit Veneve down to like 3 to 5 micron Veneve on the other side. But I've made some reliefs so that the edge has the sides kind of carved off a little bit, so the edge is a bit thinner. CPM 3V is technically a 4.5 out of 10 on Laren Thomas's edge retention ratings, so it technically has a little bit lower edge retention than D2, but within this test, we will have to see if I can actually feel the difference that much, or if the ability to thin out the edge a little bit actually lifts the edge retention of other steels with higher toughness than D2, such as 3V. The knife that is our test subject in D2 steel is the QSP Parrot in red canvas micarta. Really nice micarta. QSP has turned out incredibly nice piece of micarta for this knife that I think I paid about $27 for. QSP keeps real thin edges. They do relatively high polish on their blades. They come out with sort of no-nonsense designs. They're a pretty cool knife company. I saw the Parrot and I immediately sort of fell in love with the like absolute centered spear point, thin profile shape of this blade. And I was like, oh, if I was going to try out D2, I know they do a decent job with heat treatment. And that is an edge shape that I could really get behind. If you caught the last episode, I was talking about the Kaiser Original and how the blade is just a little bit shorter than what I often like in a small size EDC carry. And this thing is like the perfection of action, in my opinion. The Kaiser Original, the action is so wildly good. But if you look at the carry size of this versus this, QSP Parrot versus Kaiser Original, you can see that they're basically the same, with the exception of a little tiny bit that sticks out here on the QSP and a little bit of rounding on the top. But otherwise, if you were to overlap the two of them, you can't see much Parrot behind the original. A little bit there, maybe a little bit there. However, if you compare them edge to edge, you will find that they have smashed the extra 1/4 inch that I wanted into this QSP Parrot. Do you see that? You bottom of edge to bottom of edge. You've got a lot more edge on this for not a lot more carry size. So I've been really excited about it. D2's not been my like ultimate favorite, but I don't have that much experience with it, to be honest. And it'll be really interesting to see with my present level of sharpening skills on a heat treatment that I know is decent and solid of D2 in a budget knife, like, hey, can this compete with the big boys? If it's really a 5 in edge retention, can it hold its own against tougher steels or more popular steels like CPM 3V or MagnaCut? Anyway, I'll show some sort of glamour shots of these knives to show you a bit of the detail work that people have done on them. And I'll carry these guys for a week each and give you my thoughts. All right, my friends, back from a week of carrying this bad boy and this bad boy, and I have a few thoughts, but I have to say it's been a surprisingly difficult choice to make. And we'll start with the QSP Parrot because I actually carried this first. I find that their micarta is excellent. This is some of the nicest feeling canvas micarta. It's just got the chunkiest texture. The finish is pretty nice in that it's a bit shiny, but shinier finishes seem to leave less surfaces prone to rust. And this D2 has not rusted, discolored, or tarnished at all, or formed any kind of patina. The action is just solid. It's just on phosphor bronze washers. You can reverse flick it with some sort of gymnastics of your back finger, but just solid normal action, good lockup. The ergonomics feel pretty good. It's a pretty blank canvas there, but nothing bad, nothing that I noticed was out of place. It's a little flat and a little bit sharp cornered in spots, but for everyday carry, you don't really notice it. The spear point is beautiful, but the D2 is the real surprise for me. So I came into this with very low expectations on D2 because I know the toughness is not high, so I expected that we could run into some chipping at the edge. It has really, really large carbides, and I haven't used D2 in a long time, and my last experience with it was not amazing. But I have to say, this D2 took the dual grit edge that I put on it beautifully. It held it beautifully. It had surprisingly good edge retention. QSP has left this real thin behind the edge and put quite an acute angle on this edge. And this blade, the QSP Parrot, is a workhorse. I really enjoyed carrying it. It did everything that I wanted it to do and competed with many of the knives that I have really liked so far. So pleasant surprise there. Really like this as a budget knife. I mean, I paid so little for the QSP Parrot. I think it's like $27. So I was really, really shocked with the value factor in terms of good design, solid lockup, good action, workhorse steel, good heat treatment, very, very versatile grind and design arrangement. It's just a thing of beauty. So well done, QSP, on this. Very impressed with the QSP Parrot. Charles Jones Bonepicker. Now, my friend Calvin gave me this, and it's really a cool stylized knife. So I've enjoyed, like, the look of it is kind of edgy and intense. The CPM 3V steel is super, super tough. And this is a really, really, really cool knife. I think I had really high expectations, and maybe in both cases, the expectations were like a little bit misplaced. I was like low expectations and then really, really high expectations. I have to say I really like this, and I like the steel, and I like a lot of things about it. I think probably my main problem is that I carried these ultra dialed in 10V fixed blades from Jason at Blank Blades First, and I probably didn't think through that super well because I think Jason has sort of ruined me for fixed blade EDC because he just does such a great job. I guess some sort of feedback on this design. I think Charles Jones has done a great job, and I think he has a certain set of priorities that this is probably right on point for what he wants. But I personally, on a fixed blade EDC, would like to minimize handle length. I don't actually need this much handle. There's actually probably a couple fingers worth of extra handle there. I would prefer to have the extra edge length in this overall length. That is one thing that sort of tripped me up because I was making cuts and sometimes they'd kind of slip over this little belly area here, and I was wishing that the blade was just a little bit longer. I also was wishing that the blade was either a little bit narrower, like not quite such a high blade height here, or that the tip was lower. I've been realizing, guys, this is actually like a priority for me, is that if you draw a midline down the design, I actually find that I almost always prefer tips that are at the midline and below. This one is like spear point. It's right in the middle. And the control of the blade and the edge shape were really, really good. This one, on the other hand, if you drew a midline down that blade, then the tip would be riding quite high above that. And it leads to this severe curve in the belly of the cutting belly of the knife. And that's really good for some things. I think this long handle, I'm not sure if this knife is sort of your EDC defense sort of concept. And so he wanted like a lot of handle because he was thinking combat and grip and different things like that. I'm not sure, but it would probably make sense for that. And the machining on the handle is really good for grip as well. It's like really aggressive, but not uncomfortable. It's quite nice actually. And I know that a lot of your like skinning designs, so if you are a hunter and you're going to use a knife to skin out an animal, it's really helpful in those cases to have the tip swept up kind of out of the way and have the belly be really severe so you can do those sort of gliding cuts to separate skin from the rest of the animal if you have caught some wild game. So I'm sure the maker of this knife, Charles Jones, has sort of dialed this in for what he does and what he likes. I unfortunately am not going out and hunting. I'm not an especially combat-oriented person. And so some of those details are a little more lost on me, where I like actually a design where the edge is sort of leaned more forward and kind of pushes into a normal utilitarian cut and maximizes the usefulness of that edge length that you have. It is, I suppose, a little bit unfair to compare these two, although actually they probably have about the same amount of edge. I was going to say that Bonepicker has so much less edge, but actually it doesn't have that much less edge. It's just that it's curved so severely, so I guess maybe it is. I liked the sheath that this one came with. It's a really nice sheath. It really fills up your whole pocket if you're going to fixed blade EDC it. Like, it was rubbing the top of most of my pockets. So it does fit in. This is probably about the max length or the maximum size that I could actually carry in most of the pants that I have. And I have to say, another thing that makes a big difference in fixed blade EDC is these sort of barrel sheaths. I'll see if I can find one. Here. These sort of leather barrel sheaths that Jason makes at Blank Blades and many other makers make mean that you can tip this over and it's sort of still there sticking out of your pocket, and then you can pull this thing out and this sort of just rests there, and you can use the knife for your work, and then when you're done you can just sort of slip it back in and you're off and away again. And I have to say, this Kydex is really cool, really tough, doesn't absorb any moisture, but I did find that the Kydex sheath was a lot less convenient in actual carry. You'd be wanting to use it and you'd bring this up, pull it out of the sheath, but usually that small little Kydex sheath would work its way back down in the pocket as you're working. Or if you went to sheath it like this, it's got a lot of travel. It doesn't have its nose down in the bottom of your pocket or the side. And so you'd have open blade going into your pocket, which makes me a bit nervous. So I'd inevitably have to fish this out, and it's not as wide, I guess, of an opening. You kind of got to slot Kydex pretty specifically. It's a good sheath, and it's made with a belt loop, so maybe I'm misusing it there, but I don't really like to carry a fixed blade on my belt like in an everyday sense, unless I'm doing like gardening or landscaping. I'm more prone to do something that you can throw into your pocket. So it's a really cool sheath. I like the click of it, and the fit of it, and the slimness of it is amazing. But I definitely missed the extension that makes it a little bit easier to get it in and out of your pocket in a quick and efficient way. As far as edge retention goes, I would say that both of these probably did have about the same amount. Even though I made some reliefs on the side of this blade, I actually didn't notice a huge boost in edge retention or cutting geometry from that in this particular case. Part of that was because this D2 in the QSP just took an extraordinarily aggressive edge. And I have to say that one last thing before I declare a winner is that I took this on vacation with my friends and used it for a bunch of food prep, and then we found at the Airbnb, oh, like we don't even have a can opener at this place, and my friends needed to open these like 3 cans of tuna or something right before a meal. And so I was like, well, what do you have a knife for if you can't use it? And I took this QSP, punched it through the lid of a tuna can, probably about 40 times in order to get these 3 tuna cans open. And with D2, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna just like totally shred and destroy this edge. It's gonna be, you know, unable to be repaired ever, you know? And I got done with it, and there are a couple little chips in the very tip that punched through the can, but nothing that you couldn't sharpen out. Like, I'm gonna be able to sharpen those out in 20 minutes. And the edge was a bit dead up here where it had gone through the cans. But no lie, guys, no word of a lie. I took a plate and just and then like went alternating back and forth, and then went really careful edge leading on the bottom of a ceramic plate. And this thing instantly was back. In fact, I haven't touched it since then. And check this out. Paper slicing capacity after 1 week. Charles Jones Bonepicker is still doing pretty well. Not wanting to push cut, but definitely slicing okay with some labored sounds. I cut up a lot of cardboard boxes with both of these, so. QSP punched through. Now this did not punch through steel with the tip 40 times and then get just like brushed up on the bottom of a plate. This did. It's got one really clear catch. As I said, there is a chip that formed at the very tip. That is not slicing right there. But the whole body of the knife, guys, oh my gosh, it's actually push cutting. It's actually push cutting. That's insane. It's sharper. It's identifiably sharper. And now, of course, it did get resharpened on that plate. But still, the fact remains, like, this punched through metal, and that is like death to an edge. And I just have to say, I feel like QSP is doing a really, really good job with their D2. So I'm gonna probably kind of turn this into my test mule to like sort out sharpening protocols for D2, because I really, really like what they've done with their D2. And it seems very, very functional, good hardness, adequate toughness, obviously. So that's quite a cool detail to me. So here we are at the end, and I'm torn because like this is a gift from a viewer and donor, Calvin, who's a really awesome and amazing guy. And this is just a budget knife, but I had a better experience with this, and I'm like, oh, are all of my viewers gonna call me an idiot if I choose a $27 D2 blade over a beautiful CPM 3V custom? And you may, you may indeed call me an idiot, but I think that for the purposes of this tournament, in terms of the overall performance and the enjoyment that I had, I'm gonna have to choose the week that I carried this over the week that I carried this. And now that doesn't mean that this is like a disappointment or a bad blade. I think it's a really cool blade, and I think I'm even like thinking of some of my friends or other YouTubers and like the values that they have and the things that are important to them, and I'm like, oh, I may actually turn this into a gift at some point, because I think it's an excellent and really cool blade. And I think that somebody could get like lots and lots of joy out of it. It sort of just barely missed my vibe, I guess. But a really fun experience. I like CPM 3V overall. I really like the toughness of it. And I'm coming to like fixed blade EDC. It's really fun. But I think because of the experiences that I had with each of these, I think for the winner of the best carry experience that I had this week, I did not expect to say this at all, guys. I did not expect to say this. But it's going to have to be the QSP Parrot. I really like this. I literally best tested these with my eyes closed, so this is the first time I'm seeing the readings, and the QSP is at 161. That's pretty average for a dual grit edge in this tournament with this 400-800. The Charles Jones Bonepicker, let's check it out. A 262. So yeah, definitely lower initial keenness. Here's the tournament standings to catch you guys all up, and next week we'll find out who the QSP Parrot faces off against. If you guys want to catch the last episode, I'll put a link on screen now. For all the rest of you, I'll say, hey, peace out from the home slice. You guys take care, and I'll catch you in the next episode.